Hello everyone and welcome to the first Commander Tactics deck tech of 2020. My name's Pope. Without taking too much time, just want to say we are looking forward to a great year following all the amazing products coming for the Commander format and all the new unique cards coming our way. Also, make sure that you stick around until the end of the video for info on how to enter the giveaway for the Bitter Blossom secret lair goods that we cracked open in one of our earlier videos. You also may notice that this deck tech format is a little bit different, so give me some feedback down in the comments and we'll continue to pump out the best content that we can. But without any further ado, let's get this show started. For today's deck, we're going to be brewing around the mono blue god herself, the new and exciting Thassa Deep Dwelling from Theros Beyond Death. Thassa is a legendary enchantment creature god, costing 3 generic and a blue, has indestructible in the standard devotion creature clause like on all Theros gods, and hers is less than 5. Her true power lies in her ability that at our end step it allows us to blink any other creature we control and return it back to the battlefield on our side. And then as a benefit, for another 3 and a blue, we can tap down any other creature on the field. Thassa has all the weapons needed for a unique and powerful commander, but now let's look at how exactly we're going to utilize this to make the best deck possible. For our brew, we're going to be heavily leaning into the ability to blink our creatures and abuse some very powerful ETB effects. And as a secondary strategy, we're going to be toying around with our opponent's board using her second ability to tap things down. And as some extra spice, we have a few combos that can help us reel in the games and get the wins. And our budget for this build, not including Thassa or basics, comes out under $150, so very reasonable. But now let's cut the chit chat, take a look at the bomb, enter the battlefield effects that we're going to be recycling, beginning with Sour of Temptation and Agent of Treachery. When these two creatures enter the battlefield, they're going to allow us to relocate one of our opponent's creatures to our side of the battlefield. Sour of Temptation has flying and lets us gain control of any creature on the field until Sour leaves the field. The hidden beauty in this card is that it can easily be abused thanks to Thassa. Thassa's ability that lets us blink a creature states that when we blink it, we return it to our side of the field. So thanks to that wording, we will retain the commandeered creature and then be able to blink Sour of Temptation later for maximum value. And then we have Agent of Treachery. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we're going to get to gain control of any target permanent. And with the upside that if we do happen to control 3 permanents that we didn't start with at the beginning of the game, we get to draw 3 cards. And with Thassa on board, we can actually blink Agent at our end step and take 2 permanents the turn that it comes down. Fair warning though, people do not like their stuff to be stolen, so be prepared for some retaliation. Next up we have Venser, Shaper, Savant, and Torrential Gearhulk. These 2 flash creatures come in and do some very powerful things. Venser, Shaper, Savant, whenever he enters, we get to return a target spell or permanent to its owner's hand. So it kind of acts as a counter spell, maybe a Narset's reversal, or if there's a permanent on the board, we can bounce it also. And Torrential Gearhulk, a little more expensive, costing 4 and 2 blue mana, has flash, but whenever it enters the battlefield, we can cast any instant from our graveyard for free. Both Venser and Torrential Gearhulk are true problem solvers for whatever we need to deal with, whether it be a counter spell or whether we need some more card draw or something to answer anything on the board. One of them is going to help us get that done, and then we can blink it at our end step with Thassa and recur that ETB value. And then we have 3 extreme value creatures coming into this deck with Duplicate, Archaeomancer, and Muldrifter. Duplicate, whenever it comes onto the battlefield, we're going to get to exile any creature on the board. If Duplicate does exile a creature, his power and toughness becomes the power and toughness of that creature exiled, and he gains all creature types. Being able to exile 2 creatures the turn this comes down if we have Thassa in place makes Duplicate an incredible removal for only 6 mana. Archaeomancer, 2 a blue and a blue, letting us recur a target instant or sorcery card from our graveyard to our hand whenever it enters, and of course, thanks to Thassa, we'll be able to do that multiple times by blinking it. And Muldrifter, arguably one of the best blue commander cards in play. For 4 and a blue, we get a flying elemental. Whenever Muldrifter enters the battlefield, we're going to simply draw 2 cards. But if we don't have the mana to pay for it, we can pay 2 and a blue to evoke it out, and then we'll have to instantly sacrifice it. Simply blinking each of these creatures one time is going to give us a huge advantage and help us stay in the game. And the last 2 cards I did want to bring up here, Clever Impersonator and Spark Double. Both of these creatures are going to enter the battlefield, essentially giving us 2 copies of every creature in our deck. So whatever we have on the field, we can bring these in as clones, or if our opponent has something good on their side of the field, we can bring Clever Impersonator in as that. Having 2 Agent of Treacheries or 2 duplicates in the deck make these both auto-includes, in my opinion, and very powerful additions. But now let's take a look at all the spells we're going to be using to capitalize on Thassa's second ability, starting things off with actually tapping down our own creatures with Galecaster Colossus and Azami Lady of Scrolls. You'll notice on both of these spells they do say tap an untapped wizard you control. Number 1, you can use these the moment they come down and tap themselves. It's not a true tap ability, so they do get around summoning sickness. And while Wizard Tribal isn't really the theme of this deck, we do run a hefty amount, and they can use their ability on themselves. Galecaster Colossus, a bit expensive for 5 and 2 blue, but can be a real game changer. Tap an untapped wizard you control to return a target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. This effect is so broken and can be used to really turn the game around in your favor. With Thassa on board, we can cast Galecaster, tap it to bounce the most expensive permanent on the field, then blink Galecaster at our end step and do it again. And if by chance you do get to go around the entire table and keep Galecaster on board, there is a good chance you will just win games. And then Azami Lady of Scrolls for 2 and 3 blue, so really going to help our blue devotion get up there. We can tap an untapped wizard we control to draw a card. Again, whenever Azami comes down, we can tap her to draw a card, blink her at our end step with Thassa, and then tap her again to draw an additional card. Next up, we have 3 flex creatures going to help us do what we need when we need it. Pestermite, Deceiver Exarch, and Fate Stitcher. Pestermite has flash, so we can play it on our opponent's turn. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we can tap or untap any target permanent. Deceiver Exarch, similar thing, has flash, and whenever it enters the battlefield, we can either untap a permanent we control or tap a permanent an opponent controls. And then Fate Stitcher can be tapped, and then we can tap or untap another target permanent, but also has Unearth, so for a blue we can bring it back from our graveyard for 1 turn and then exile it at our end step. In this deck, we do run several big mana rocks, so being able to untap them with these creatures can help us get a big advantage, but also if we have big threats on board threatening us from our opponent, we can use these to tap them down when we need to, and then blink them thanks to Thassa, and do whatever shenanigans need to happen. To keep a true lock on the board, we are also running 3 enchantments that are going to help us tap down our opponent's creatures, with Rhystic Deluge, Flood, and Quiet Contemplation. Rhystic Deluge, for 1 blue, we can tap down a target creature unless its controller pays 1. While 1 mana to pay is a very small price, this can be used very politically, so make sure if you have Rhystic Deluge in play, you are looking to make some deals with opponents to better favor you both. Flood, for only 1 blue we get this enchantment that for 2 blue additional we can tap down any target non-flying creature. Again, both these abilities can be activated at instant speed, which will help to ensure that our opponents do not attack us. Quiet Contemplation for 2 and a blue, another enchantment. Whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we may pay 1. If we do, we can tap down a target creature an opponent controls, and it doesn't get to untap at their untap step. With over a third of our deck being non-creature spells, Quiet Contemplation is definitely going to help us out for only the 1 additional mana. At face value, these enchantments may not seem too threatening, but if you use them at a political advantage, you can definitely get way ahead. No one wants their big threats tapped down, and if you can make that big threat swing at someone besides you, then well, why wouldn't you do that? And moving on, maybe the best card draw option in this deck, if things line up, Verity Circle. Coming out of the new Ravnica set, Verity Circle. Whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes tapped, if it isn't being tapped as an attacker, we get to draw a card. And just as a bonus, it does have a second ability that lets us tap a target creature without flying for 5 mana. In the magical Dreamland, we are going to have Verity Circle in play with all of our amazing enchantments, going to be tapping down our opponent's creatures and drawing a boatload of cards. Controlling the state of the board while getting an advantage is definitely the name of the game with these specific spells. And rounding out the deck, let's take a look at a few of the combos and political cards we run in this deck to really help us pull games in. Starting things off with one of the easiest 2-card combos to assemble with Deadeye Navigator and Peregrine Drake. And I should also mention before I talk about this, Deadeye Navigator can pair with a ton of the creatures in this deck to create some sort of infinite loop or tons of mana. If you're not familiar with Deadeye Navigator, he has Soul Bond, so we can pair him with another creature whenever it enters the battlefield. And then, for only 1 and a blue, we can blink that creature or blink Deadeye Navigator. This at its core gives Deadeye Navigator and Peregrine Drake essentially protection from everything except board wipes. And then if we pair it up with something like Peregrine Drake that whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to untap 5 lands. For only 2 mana, we are getting to untap 5 lands, essentially generating infinite mana, 3 mana at a time. This is a very hard combo to disrupt, so easy win if we get this in play. The next combo I want to address is Training Grounds and Illusionist Bracers if we can get them online with Thassa. In order to get this combo online though, the first thing we need to do is make Thassa a creature in order to get Illusionist Bracers equipped and make Training Grounds relevant. Training Grounds for only 1 blue and the most expensive card in this entire deck says activated abilities of creatures you control cost up to 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce it beyond 1. And then Illusionist Bracers for 2 mana, we get an equipment that costs 3 to equip. Whenever an ability of the equipped creature is activated, if it wasn't a mana ability, we get to copy it an additional time. If we're able to get Thassa equipped with the Bracers and Training Grounds on board, then that means we can tap down 2 target creatures for only 1 and a blue. While this isn't going to instantly win you the game, you can rest assured that you will not be being hit for any big damage from threats on our opponent's side. The next cheeky combo we'll be running is the Ghostly Flicker Archaeomancer combo. Ghostly Flicker reads that we can exile 2 target artifact creatures or lands we control, then return those cards to the battlefield under our control. And Archaeomancer allows us to return an instant or sorcery card from our graveyard back to our hand. So the loop could look something like cast Ghostly Flicker targeting Archaeomancer and let's say Gilded Lotus, bring back Ghostly Flicker with Archaeomancer's ETB effect, and then we can repeat the process, have an infinite ETB, cast, and tap effects. And if for any reason we have an artifact or land/creature able to generate 4 mana or more, then this is just infinite mana as well. Again, while these combos will not win you the game by themselves, with anything in support of these, you will absolutely be able to lock things down. And the last 2 spells I wanted to bring up are 2 major political big hitters, and that is Tidespout Tyrant and Galecaster Colossus, which I talked about earlier. Tidespout Tyrant for 5 and triple blue, so a little expensive, says whenever you cast a spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand. With the ability to bounce lands back to their hands, Tidespout Tyrant is one of those threats that whenever it comes down, you will become enemy number 1. But in the instance where it doesn't get addressed quickly, look to make deals and make allies, even though you will definitely be way ahead. And Galecaster Colossus, similar effect except we can't bounce lands. Whenever we tap an untapped wizard, we can return a non-land permanent back to its owner's hand. These 2 cards can be so powerful, so just make sure that whenever you get them in play, you use them properly to take out the next biggest threat and try to make friends before they get removed. But now we have seen most of the ins and outs of this deck, let's take a look at what else is inside the 99. For this brew, we are going to be running 14 removal and control spells, but again, we do have a ton of additional effects letting us bounce things. For card draw and advantage, we are looking at about 12 spells, many of which are recurable thanks to Thassa's blink ability. We've got 11 ramp spells to ensure we get to those Tidespout Tyrant and Galecaster Colossus when we need it. And when evaluating the power level of this deck, I would put it between a 6 and a 6.5. In order to win with this deck, we're going to do that in a few different ways. Number one, we're going to use Thassa's value by blinking all of our ETB effects and protecting us by tapping down our opponent's creatures. If straight value doesn't get the job done, we can bring in Deadeye Navigator, one of our many combo pieces with him, in order to get infinite mana and round the game out that way. And if things go late, let's look to bring in Tidespout Tyrant or Galecaster Colossus to bounce our opponent's stuff back to their hand and secure the win. A few budget alternatives we could slot into this deck: Archetype of Imagination, Scourge of Fleets, and Kefnet's Monument. Archetype of Imagination gonna give all of our creatures flying while also taking flying away from our opponents. And in addition to this, we are also going to get 2 more Devotion to blue, which is great because turning Thassa on as a creature is helpful in this deck. Scourge of Fleets, whenever it enters the battlefield, so it can be abused with Thassa, says that whenever it enters, we're going to return each creature our opponents control with toughness X or less to their hand, where X is the number of islands we control, which of course is going to be all of our lands. And Kefnet's Monument going to reduce the casting cost of our blue creatures, and whenever we cast a creature, we can tap an opponent's creature and it doesn't get to untap during their next untap step. All of these great additions and could possibly be even better than some of the cards that I picked for the main deck. And if you're looking to upgrade this deck, you can add in things like the Dramatic Scepter combo, the Great Whale, and Phyrexian Metamorph. Icecrown's Scepter imprinted with Dramatic Reversal leads to infinite mana if we have anything that can generate more than 2 mana when tapped. Great Whale is simply a bigger Peregrine Drake that whenever it comes into play, we get to untap 7 lands. And Phyrexian Metamorph, for only 3 generic mana and 2 life, or Phyrexian, we may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any artifact or creature on the battlefield. All great additions if you're looking to soup this deck up. And lastly, the giveaway for the Bitter Blossom Secret Lair drop that we opened up a couple weeks ago. In order to enter, all you have to do is be a subscriber to the channel and click the gleam.io link down below to find all the ways you can get in. That giveaway will run for 2 weeks, and we will announce the winner on our January 24th deck tech that'll be coming your way. Good luck to everyone who enters, and thanks so much for an awesome 2019. But that is going to wrap up this mono blue deck tech. I wasn't sure at first how I felt about Thassa, but after brewing around her and building this deck, I can't wait to get my hands on this card. But let me know down in the comments section, what cards did I miss? What cards would you take out? What would you add? I always love hearing your guys' opinions and have definitely made changes based on comments in previous videos. But of course, thanks to everyone who continues to like, comment, and share on these videos. I love making deck techs, love making videos, and hope you enjoy them just as much. If you're a Twitter user, head on over there, drop us a follow, EDH Tactics. And if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you for the next one.